In Texas Tech, in Lubbock, it has gotten up to the point where some students straight up avoid this area. Like, I know for some professors actually assigned projects that have to be done in this area, and some students chose not to do it and took the failing grade because oh yeah, it's in the free speech area. The free speech area is bad, it sucks. Basically, the entire point of this video is to basically say to the people who say that want the free speech area to stay the exact same way it is without changes, I'm here to propose an idea of how we can fix it and make it better, along with how to offend less people. On top of that, like, some students, like, there's classes nearby this area, and some students prefer to walk the long way over the short way to get to classes, so yeah, there's quite a few problems with this free speech area. For those of you wondering, how could it be this bad? Well, I'm gonna show you. Alright, so first thing, this area, we need to go over that it's really offensive. Like, there's been church groups that have put up abortion signs literally less than a mile away from a Chick-fil-A restaurant, which is absolutely disgusting. Like, that shouldn't appetize anybody. And yes, it did show on a poster like the actual deceased fetus, which is disgusting. And keep in mind, this is less than a mile away from a Chick-fil-A by walking distance. There's also been people arrested for hate speech in this area. Yeah, a lot of hate speech goes on. And they get insane. Like, I remember this is coming from a few personal examples. I remember seeing somebody getting arrested for hate speech, and this guy was basically claiming that we all came from rocks. And he got insane. Like, he was starting naming up like racist things. He was starting going over like, oh yeah, well, certain races get to heaven, some races don't. It was insane. What's even more insane is that Texas Tech actually promotes these, even though they directly violate their own code of conduct. Texas Tech is funding these, promoting these, they're hosting these, even though it completely goes against their code of conduct. Some adults in this area take advantage and spread hate speech that is a violation of the Constitution and basic human rights, and again, violates Texas Tech's own code of conduct. So I'm here to propose something. I'm going to propose a solution that'll make everybody happy, that'll make most people happy. This solution will limit the amount of people offended. It still gives people, both students and adults, opportunities to use the free speech area. And again, limits the amount of people offended, and it limits the amount of hate speech that happens. So here's my solution. We get a checking point system for the free speech area. Now, the free speech area, the way it currently is you can just show up there and you could say whatever you want. You could say things like you could go there and say the most offensive thing that you could think of. And the sad part about this is that, like, adults are getting away with this. There are people spreading hate speech that are getting away with spreading hate speech and nothing is being done about it. It's on very rare occasions that people actually do get arrested for hate speech, even though some honestly should. So, checking point system. Imagine that, like, you want to basically, you can do like the exact same speeches that you want to do. You can have posters, but you have to go to like an advisor. Ideally, these advisors would be in the sub building, which is very close to the free speech area, or ideally in a good situation. These advisors or checkpoint systemers would be really close to the free speech area. Some of these things could take up to like, some of these things that you could just go up to them, you walk up to them and say, hey, can I do this speech? They ask what your presentation is about, and they say, sure. and then basically it's identical to what it was like before. Maybe this could even help bring on security for like some more controversial speeches, because we know that there are some people who, or some adults who want to do controversial speeches. So like maybe they could still have their speeches if they really want to, and if the advisors approve it, maybe we can add like securities as like a safety measure. Because like security in this area really needs to happen, because there's been fights that happen at other free speech areas on other campuses, and it's gone up to the point where some campuses have outright removed their free speech area or blocked it off. If we add the system, this would help us determine what speeches are going to be controversial. It'd give the university like a chance to be like, all right, do we want this guy? Can we approve this guy? Yes or no? And if so, do we need to like add things like security to this? Let's say it's a church belief one. Let's say that it's not necessarily like race belief, but it's like maybe religion belief or something. Maybe we can add security, maybe we can add like 1 or 2 security guards to make sure that fights don't break out in this area. On universities, most violent attacks happen on free speech areas. On top of that, here's a little history lesson. So students, back then, Texas Tech didn't have a free speech area. Then like over 900 students signed a petition, and then eventually snowballed into what we have today. However, recent studies show that students don't view the free speech area as important as it was back then than it is today. They show like more interest in things like diversity. And this actually makes sense because more statistics from other websites show that students of minority, specifically in race, color, religion, or sex, believe that their rights are less protected. And again, there's like all the things I mentioned earlier, like the fact that there's countless examples of hate speech happening here, and hardly any of it goes reported. However, some of it does get reported, but not all of it. But let's compare the amount of reports. So in August of 2018 to 2019, there was 1 report in this area of hate speech. The very next year, 2019 to 2020, there was like more than 11 reports compared to last year. Yeah, that is literally like an 1,000% increase of reports. So basically my entire point of this video was the free speech area is really offensive. That's basically like a fact. Even if you yourself don't find it offensive, if you're able to just ignore everything that's going on, you have to admit that students avoiding this area for projects or walking along the way to classes or just never going to this area like ever, that's gotta say something. This area is really offensive. And I'm not saying that we should get rid of it, because because students created this area, students helped create this area with the petitions all the way back then. Now times and ideals change, and sure, maybe a free speech area isn't as needed as it is now than it was back then. However, I still feel that students should have the ability to use this area as much as they want to. And I believe that adding a checking system would greatly benefit it. I mean, like, if you think about it, like, a checking system would greatly benefit it, and there's literally like no consequences to this. For example, and if you're gonna say, well, yeah, but some students might be shy to get some things approved, or they might just, because let's be honest, some people use the area for entertainment purposes, such as myself. I was gonna film a YouTube video here for my channel, but for my own personal comedic channel. But for those of you who are saying that adding a checking system would add problems, to that I say this. For professors in class, whatever, most professors, including the one who's probably watching this right now, like for the topics thing, here's an example. For the topics thing, we have to pick a thing throughout the whole semester, and you have to get it approved by the professor. And this is something that is mandatory that all students do. It is hypocritical to say that the free speech area checkpoint system would cause problems whenever this is literally mandatory by classes. I mean, literally countless professors do this. Countless professors ask to see like a draft or something of your project so that they can approve the idea or not, because some topics may be offensive. So why can't we just do the exact same thing that professors are doing, but with the free speech area?